Good morning. Thanks for joining us. I want to share some thoughts that I picked up from Max Lucado in one of his early books. It's called On the Anvil. In Psalm 66, verses 10 through 12, it says this: "You, O God, have tested us. You have refined us as silver is refined. You brought us into the net. You laid affliction on our backs. We went through fire and through water, but you brought us out to rich fulfillment." How many of you like being tested? I do not. How many of you like surprise quizzes when you're at school? Bad feeling when you're like, I did not read what I was supposed to read, and now I have to guess at the answers. Life is like that, and God does test us. There's no question about it. As a matter of fact, it's like we're on God's anvil. I remember being in Belize, Central America, summer of 1986, and we had this hand crank concrete mixer, okay? And I remember when we first saw it, students were all excited, and I said, "And we've got 24 cement mixers." They didn't get what I was saying. In other words, we got to do those. I remember the end of that summer, I never get big muscles, but there wasn't like an ounce of fat on my arm, and it was as ripped as it ever has been. But at one point the thing broke, and the missionary, John Collier, had to fix some of the iron parts to it. And I remember putting them in the fire and getting them all hot. And I just thought, man, I wouldn't want to be that thing right now. And then he starts hammering away on it. But see, it's when it's hot, it's when it's in that state that it's most shapeable. So if you're going through a hard time right now, God's wanting to shape you right now. He's wanting, so I know sometimes it's just like, God, I don't like this season I'm going through. But in the midst of that, He can shape you. And then afterwards, what does the blacksmith do? What did the missionary in Belize do? Puts it in the water. It doesn't have to be cold water. And then it just solidifies the changes and it cools down. And that's the refreshing that we have after we go through periods of testing and trial. But God is doing that with our lives, and He's reshaping us into the image of Christ. And day by day, that's the plan. And so you guys know what it's like. I mean, you go through just a difficult time. It could be a breakup. You might have lost your job. I don't know what it is. Maybe there's been a death in the family. There's all sorts of different things. You're battling a disease. It's like, why am I going through this? But this is a point where you can be shaped even more than at any other point in your normal life. So we would like to avoid the anvil, but I just want to encourage you to go through it. Go through it with your eyes on the Lord. It reminds us that we belong to God, the time that we go through it. So we shouldn't try to escape it as much as we might like that. And here's the thing. God sees our life from beginning to end. And so that's why I take a look at my own life, and I wanted to go away to college and live in a dorm room somewhere. God kept me at home. All I can say is I understand much better me becoming a pastor, why God did that and kept me at home. And when I stayed at home, those college years, those summers, I found out about summer mission trips, and I started going on summer mission trips. Why? Because I was going to lead a lot of summer mission trips. I didn't know that at that point because I was just looking at 19-year-old, 18-year-old Paul. Jesus was looking at 40-year-old Paul, 25-year-old Paul, 55-year-old Paul. God sees your whole life from beginning to end. And you know, an instrument is really only useful if it's in the right shape, okay? Just to quote a couple things from Max here, and we'll wrap it up. A dull axe or a bent screwdriver needs attention. So do we sometimes. We're not in the right shape. And a good blacksmith keeps his tools in good shape. And you know what? When it comes to tools, God's like better than a good blacksmith. Should God place you on the anvil, we should be thankful because it means that He can still use us. He still has great things in store for us. God bless you. Have a great day. Have a great year.